Hello, thank you for joining me today for CREDC's Grow Clark County Podcast Edition. I'm Marnie Farnes, Relationships and Strategy Manager with CREDC. I'm so excited to share with you insights delivered straight from my guest, Ryan Moor, CEO of Ryonet Allmade Apparel. Ryonet was started in 2004 when Ryan, who was in a band at the time, wanted to find a way to make more money. So he started by printing t-shirts to advertise his band, and then he would sell them on eBay. But before long, Ryan found himself as a key entrepreneur in the screen printing industry, taking Ryonet to become the biggest screen printing equipment manufacturer and supply company. Ryan is also co-founder of Allmade Apparel. Now, Ryonet has multiple locations, including their headquarters right here in Vancouver. And Ryan has a keen sense for business and a big heart for philanthropy. Ryan's enthusiasm and success are contagious. You'll sense it as he shares his story and gives pointers on their recent decision to pivot part of their business path. One thing that I keep hearing over and over is that however you've done business in the past, it's critical now more than ever for you to speak and think honestly with yourself and find ways to either pivot or adjust going forward. Also, a big thank you to IQ Credit Union, Ryonet, and Allmade Apparel for their generosity in sponsoring this CREDC podcast. Their support helped to make this series available to everyone. So without further ado, let's hear from Ryan Moor. Hi, Ryan. It's nice to have you here with us today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to hearing how Ryonet Allmade Apparel have pivoted, because I've heard some amazing things coming out of your end of the world and through social media and just word of mouth. And it sounds like some amazing things are happening.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate to be able to maintain business and achieve different, avenues of both growth, but also helping the community and helping, what's going on at the same time. So it's, we're lucky and we are very appreciative for that message being told.
Yeah, and we're appreciative too of all the stuff that we're hearing that you're doing for the community. That's wonderful. So Ryan, I've already told listeners a little bit about you, but perhaps you can share a little bit about yourself and also about Ryonet and Allmade.
Yeah, thanks. I was from Portland, born in Portland, but moved to Battleground, Washington at a young age. Grew up in Battleground, not too far from Brush Prairie, and went to school there. After school, instead of going to college, I did go to Clark College for a little bit, but dropped out of college and went to the University of Rock and Roll, is what I like to call it, or punk rock, which led to printing our own punk rock t-shirts, which led me into the t-shirt industry. So in Battleground, started a business out of our garage, out of a pole barn, went from a garage to a pole barn to the house, and then moved towards Vancouver and have been in Vancouver ever since in a couple different locations.
Oh, that's great.
Our core business in Ryonet was started by helping screen printers be successful. So we would help them start, we help them grow, and supply them pretty much anything they need to print a shirt. And so we've grown to a decent sized company over the past 16 years and upwards of 100 employees. At times we've kind of spread out and kind of changed our model throughout the country in a different way. So they're not all located in Vancouver. I think we have about 65 here now in Vancouver. But over the past 4 years, we kind of wanted to evolve that to the next step of actually offering a blank shirt. So that's where Allmade Apparel came into the picture of not just a great shirt, but a great shirt that could be printed on. And while you're printing it, through the exploration of manufacturing shirts, it opened up a whole new level of understanding of the effects, positive and negative, that apparel has on society, on labor. It's one of the top 6 job creators in the world, and the second most harmful on the environment. So
that's interesting.
We did, because it's so large in both labor and then also environmental impact, we decided to, if we're going to make a shirt, we're going to make it responsible for the environment using eco-friendly materials and also responsible for humanity by creating a good quality product that paid good wages and gave back to the communities that it worked within. So we've been doing that for about 4 years and are actually in the process of doing a joint venture with a really large company here in Washington State called Sanmar. They're up in Seattle, but they're the largest manufacturer and distributor in the apparel industry. So we're about ready to launch that, and then all this craziness happened. And so it's been interesting the last few months, kind of taking a traditional screen print model and a t-shirt model and transferring it to, COVID pandemic and then civil like unrest and all the stuff that's happened in the last few months. So.
Yeah, interesting. Well, that kind of ties in with something else I'm curious about, which is when 2020 started. So at the beginning in January, pre-COVID, what were you thinking 2020 would look like for the businesses?
We were excited. We had two joint ventures that we were doing. So we took one company and split it into 3 companies at the beginning of the year. Or not beginning of the year, but throughout that was the goal of 2020 is to successfully transition. We brought on a European partner who's investing in Vancouver and in our community, and us to establish a much greater foothold in automated screen printing equipment. That company's called Rock US now. And that kicked off in February, about a month before COVID hit. Luckily, that kicked off first. And then the t-shirt venture as well, which was scheduled to go live in May, but it's now June and we're not still live yet. So those types of things were exciting, and being able to focus in each individual area of the business, both supplying screen printers with success. That's what Ryonet does. Making responsible apparel that's great quality and people love. That's what Allmade does. And then automating the industry, which is what Rock does.
Oh, that's great. So when did you notice things were starting to change? Obviously in January and February, here just in the US, we were kind of watching things bubble up around the world and hearing stories. But when did you actually notice, like, okay, this is starting to impact us here?
Looking back on it, we're like, oh man, this actually started to affect us a lot sooner than we knew, specifically in the apparel industry. And at first it was like getting stuff in from Asia, which became very hard in February and January and February. And then it was what happened. I remember taking a run, I think it was March 6th, and being like, oh, this is not going to be good for t-shirts. We got to figure out something, because the last thing that you need, if this goes crazy, which it could go, the last thing that you need during a time like that is a t-shirt, and then it did. A week later it did. And so I was thinking at that time, what else could we do to stay in business, to keep our customers in business? Masks came up at that time, was one of the ideas. And then I think March 12th, I remember March 12th or some day around that, it just kind of all fell apart. And what happened in our industry is that when the events started to get canceled, that's when we knew this was going to be bad. Sporting events drive so much t-shirt business in the US that as soon as those events started to get canceled, we were like, oh, this is bad. It's going to be bad.
So as the CEO, what's it feel like to go into something like that, like a season like that? What were you thinking or feeling?
It went fast. That from week 1 to week 2, we had to make some really hard decisions. We could see what was going to happen. Our business was already declining rapidly, and we did not see that stopping. So we decided to do a workforce reduction of about 25% of our Ryonet team. We didn't reduce anyone on our Allmade team or our Rock teams because they're smaller teams. And then we were going to go to about another 50% reduced, like a work share program with the state.
Right.
And so that was the first plan. And that at the end of that day, when we had to do those layoffs, I was freaking just depressed. I was like bummed out. And then the next day I remember waking up, and it was a Saturday, and being like, wait a minute, like this is this is under your control, this is under our control. We could figure out different things to do here. And so um, one of my presidents that runs one of the companies, he texted me a picture of an ammo box kettlebell. He's like, people are buying ammo and people are trying to work out at home. So let's do both in one. And we can make it out of metal. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. Now that never happened, but it started a chain of reactions that allowed us to be proactive and gave new ideas and energy, and then just worked really quickly to make those things happen. From all the stuff that we manufacture, we started manufacturing some medical equipment and then in masks on the apparel side, which allowed us to stay open and allowed us to become essential. And most of our workforce is still remote, but our manufacturing team is here with social distancing, wearing masks. And we didn't have to. We actually have brought people back over the past 2 months. We brought about 20% of the people that we laid off back already. And then we're hiring new people, and we didn't have to do the work share program. So it was, we've been very fortunate to be able to have those pivots, and the community and yourself have been very, very, very helpful. You're the first person to call me. So that was awesome. Like literally offering help and seeing what, you could do. That was really awesome.
Yeah, well, you were definitely on my list, so I'm glad that you found it helpful. So you shared a little bit about how your pivot came to be as far as getting the idea, and how you and your partner were tossing ideas around. So maybe you could share a little bit more about that, like how exactly it was that you made the decision to pivot to what you did, the masks. How did you get the idea? How did you put it in motion?
Well, our new partner up in Seattle, I was actually talking to him on the phone about a week before, and he was mentioning that they were working with the White House. The White House was working on an order for 500 million masks. And I was like, well, if the White House is going to order 500 million masks, or FEMA, this might be a big thing. So we contacted our manufacturers. One of them was already making masks. The other ones weren't. But we put in an initial order, and then we followed up with another initial just to see how it would sell. It's a concept like we put in business called bullets before cannonballs. Like you're trying to small amount of resources to make sure you're shooting in the right direction. And if it hits the target, then you put more resources behind it. So we did that and put that live, and our team, everyone was down to hustle. They came in on Saturday. They threw different ideas on the wall. We decided to go with 3 initially, which was face masks, face shields, and then medical carts. And the face masks and face shields hit. People got orders. We worked with Providence locally here, and on the face shields and other medical facilities. And then the masks, everyone picked those up. Like our print networks, they started putting stuff on them for businesses and funny sayings, and they sold out the first day, and then we reordered, and then they sold out the second day. And then we were sold out of masks from April 1st to April 26th, which really set us back a lot, unfortunately, but the supply chain was just
clogged.
It was clogged. And so.
Okay. So the next thing I was going to ask you was, what were your biggest obstacles and challenges? And clearly that was one.
Yeah, that was by far the worst, is getting so in our industry, in the US, we consume about 2 billion shirts a year. And so the people that make those shirts are primarily, about 80% of those shirts are made in North America, a lot of them in Central America. Only about 10, maybe 15% is actually made in the US, probably less, probably 10% or less. And so if you think about, only 200 million shirts are made in the US a year or less. The mask is actually harder to make than the shirt. And then the White House alone was trying to order 500 million, and they needed them now. So the whole supply chain was just clogged. There was this very large government contract that took up all the big capacity, and then there were small players, and then everyone was, if you had a mask between April 1st to about April 20th, you would sell a mask, no matter what it costs, what color it was, if it fit well. I mean, and so it was really cool to see. A lot of people started sewing on themselves. The quality wasn't great, but
So it sounds like being first in line really for this endeavor, just in the big picture, and also your hard work really paid off, because it sounds like you guys were like on top of it.
We had 3 goals with the masks and the PPE in general. Goal number 1 was to become essential and stay in business. Goal number 2 was to replace the lost revenue, because we lost about 80% of our revenue. And then goal number 3 was to elevate the quality of the brand. So Allmade, again, we talked earlier, is an eco-friendly brand, and that has a story. So we're creating U.S. jobs. Our factory that we're working with in the 3 factories that we're working with in Los Angeles has hired over 1,200 people. We've been able to create jobs here in Washington by helping sell and hiring to ship the masks. And then it's also eco-friendly. So you're putting this on your face. We're the only we were the only eco-friendly. I think there's one other now mask on the market. So you're putting it on your face, you're breathing through it, you're essentially making out with this thing all day long. So the fact that it's good for you and good for the planet, and then it's a good quality, it's breathable, it's washable and printable, so you can brand it if you want to. So those 3 things were key. And it is more expensive, which is the downside. There are less expensive options out there, but the plus side is that I think that the offset is it's a few dollars more, and you're wearing it and washing it over. If it's 4 more washes out of the $2 less one, it's worth it. You know, which you get many times that many.
So you mentioned, your workforce and some of the bumps and the hard decisions you had to make. Curious though, when you decided to pivot, you've got, and I feel like I know the answer to this, but let me ask it anyway. When you decided to shift from making shirts to making masks, was that challenging for your team, or did it come naturally to them? And what was involved with that? Because all of a sudden you're having to train people like today, like right now, let's do this.
It was, that was really hard. It's from a sewing line. It was very hard to get up and going. I think, we started with 1 factory. At one time we're sewing in 5 factories. We're currently still using 2. And it was like, oh no, we can figure this out. And they're like, wait a minute, you have to put this, because ours is a nose piece, which is really hard to sew in. You got to get a very small stitch between a couple pieces of metal, and that way it fits your nose and it doesn't fog up your glasses. So and it keeps stuff in better. So it was hard. Like we had these lines that would make 2,000 or 3,000 shirts a day, and they would start off making like less than 200 masks. I'm like, you kidding me? That's all you made all day is like 200 masks? You got to go faster. Like
we need 2,000.
Practice makes perfect. And then people would get upset. They're like, what do you, this is like a piece of underwear. Like, and how does it cost us more than the same or more as a t-shirt? And then, then if you think about it, like underwear actually does cost more than a t-shirt for the most part, or the same. And so it's not too different. And then from our Ryonet team and our Allmade team we have a core value called embrace the craziness, and it's definitely shone through during all of this. Everyone's just like, all right, let's do it. It's basically a core value of be positive. But it's the fact that like things get nuts, and it's definitely been nuts, but embrace it and run with it and use it to your advantage, not to your disadvantage.
Yeah, for sure. So, so it sounds like that was maybe the most challenging, was just getting everybody trained up in that moment. Was that the most challenging part of pivoting? Yeah,
expanding the supply chain rapidly, and it's good. I mean, it's awesome. American manufacturing is coming back very strong through this, and I think it will probably double to triple to the point of its need before COVID. So I think that it's awesome to see. It's awesome to see this. We were very reliant, especially in our industry, but in a lot of industries, on international imports. And this is cool to see that we're doing a lot more US manufacturing now.
Mm-hmm. So what's the most important thing you learned?
The importance of, it did not all go smoothly. And so,
Mm-hmm.
it was communication is, and then being, not being too aggressive, both to your team and to, a strategy is important. But so those are like lessons learned, like, hey, if I did this again, I would change this, or moving forward, we're making these decisions slightly smarter. And then, but also the importantness of being nimble and trying new things, and positively looking at obstacles and not giving up. Those, just ring true is like, yes, it does work. I mean, you can push yourself. It's up, you can push yourself, your team, positivity and energy is contagious. So is negativity.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
get
true.
that positive energy going, and it's contagious, and your team will, and they've been awesome. And it's been a roller coaster. So I've been down in the dumps at times,
Yes.
super down yesterday, like with everything going on. And,
Mm-hmm.
and, and so
Understandable.
and, but people pick you up, and you can choose, like, I've been exercising a lot more, because exercise creates positive chemicals in your body, and it helps change your frame of reference. So if something needs to be picked up from a print shop or delivered, I'll be like, or take it down to the USPS store, which is about 1.5 miles away. I'll literally run it down, and I'll probably do it again today.
I'm sure as a business owner, and I'm sure, well, I think all professionals can relate to the importance of making time for exercise. Not that we all do it, but everybody knows it's important, and especially when things are busy and stressful. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's that whole self-care thing,
Put on your life preserver first.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We can't emphasize that enough. So things seem to be going pretty well for you now.
They're going okay. We had that, and this actually happened. The same thing happened when we first started selling t-shirts. Is, it's really hard. And actually, this is one of the lessons I learned in the apparel journey, is because it's very easy to start screen printing. We help people start screen printing all the time. It is way harder to start making apparel, like 20 times harder, you know? And so it's very hard to start, and it's also very hard to stop. So once you get the flywheel going, it's very hard to shut off the water. It's like a hand pump. It's like really hard to get going, and then all the water shoots out. There's no way you're going to stop it. It's already in the chamber and it's flowing. And so, we produced a lot of masks. We still have a lot of masks. So from we've been working with a lot of local businesses, a lot of international businesses, which is great, but we do have a lot of inventory, and that's slightly concerning, the exposure of, like, hey, what if people don't wear masks anymore? So I don't see that happening. I
don't either.
Being around for a while, but now there are a lot more options out there, and there are a lot cheaper options. So we're just relying on the quality, the eco-friendliness, and then people that want to support local. These are sold here, they're distributed here, they're printed by local print shops, using eco-friendly inks. So that's been awesome to see, and I think it will continue.
So Ryan, what are some practical tips that you have for other business owners or leaders that they can do today or this week or this month to help themselves to be more innovative with their idea of pivoting?
I can't stress of just trying stuff quickly. Don't be afraid to fail, and just try, be smart about it. And if you mess up, be open and honest and authentic. Like, hey, we messed up. Like when we launched the mask, we messed up. Like we we let people order masks when we didn't have them. And so one of the reasons why we were out for so long is because we were catching up. We actually had masks coming in, just not a lot, but we were catching up, and we disappointed a lot of our customers because we sold them before we had them. And they probably sold them before they had them. So it was, you know, but we were honest about it. I was, you know, I was on videos and posting, you know, going down to LA and trying to fix things. And I was like, hey, you know, we're sorry. This one time I remember going down there and I was like, I posted like, I'm going to LA. I'm picking 10,000 masks up. I think I came back with 500 and everyone, I was like, I'm so sorry. But I thought we were going to, and then, you know, it's just, you know, so that, and then use your community too. Like the power of community is amazing. And I've seen a ton of just awesome things happen in our community, and you know, between educational, the nonprofit sector, and medical, and business, and you know, private. It's been awesome.
Cool. So couldn't agree more, actually, because you know, obviously from a CREDC perspective, we deal so much with multiple aspects of community, and definitely agree with what you're saying there. So Ryan, with your products that you have, is there anything you want to share with listeners about your masks and how they can access perhaps ordering them?
Yeah, you can go to like our main website, ryonetscreenprinting.com, and give the team here a call. And they're also available on allmade.com.
Really appreciate you sharing your story. I know that you're well connected in the community. Of course, a lot of people know your story, but a lot of people don't. And so this is just a great way to share the work you're doing and who you are, and Allmade and Ryonet, and just really, really appreciate you joining me today.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for bringing light to it, and for everything that you are doing as well and your team.
And that wraps up podcast 3 on pivoting your path with Ryan Moor. I hope you found some takeaways and some inspiration. Join me next week as I talk with Paige Hendricks Buckner and Kara Snow, 2 very successful and dynamic leaders in business. They will share on creative funding and engagement. You won't want to miss. Until then, have a great week.